They said a woman like me had no business in his world. I drove a yellow cab through streets he owned. He wore suits worth more than my yearly rent. But one rainy Tuesday night, he slid into my back seat, and everything I knew about love, class, and belonging got turned upside down. Hey, I'm Nicole. I'm a taxi driver, a single mother, and before you roll your eyes thinking you know where this story is going, let me stop you right there. This isn't some Cinderella fantasy. This is real life with real problems, real prejudice, and real consequences. Before I tell you how a broke taxi driver ended up falling for a billionaire, and trust me, this isn't your typical fairy tale, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Because this story gets messy, it gets real, and it gets beautiful in ways I never expected. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. It was a Tuesday night in October. I remember because Tuesdays were always slow, and I was counting every dollar to make rent. I'd been driving for 6 years by then, ever since my son, Andre, was born, and I needed work that let me make my own hours. The rain was coming down hard, the kind that makes the city lights blur into each other like a watercolor painting. I was about to call it a night when my app pinged. Pick up at the Grandview Hotel. That was the fancy one downtown, all marble and doormen in uniforms. I pulled up and this man got in. White guy, maybe late 30s, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car. I've driven enough rich people to know the difference between department store and custom tailored. He was polite, said a simple address in the financial district, and I started driving. Most of my passengers either ignore me completely or treat me like I'm part of the car's upholstery. But about 5 minutes in, he asked me how my night was going. Not in that fake way people ask when they don't care about the answer. He actually waited for me to respond. I told him the truth. Long night, slow tips, but I was grateful for the work. Then he did something that surprised me. He asked about me. What did I do before driving? Did I like it? Did I have family? I'm not going to lie, I kept my answers short at first. In my experience, when men in expensive suits start asking personal questions, it usually doesn't end well for women like me, but something about him felt different. His name was Thomas Wellington, and by the time we got to his stop, we'd had a real conversation. He tipped me $50 on a $20 fare. I almost didn't take it, but my pride doesn't pay my son's school expenses. I thought that would be the end of it. One strange, nice encounter in a sea of forgettable rides. But the next Wednesday, my app pinged again, and it was a specific request. For me, same guy, same hotel. This time he asked if I minded music, and when I said no, he played jazz. We talked about Miles Davis and Nina Simone. Turns out this billionaire real estate developer knew more about black music than most people I knew. He wasn't showing off either. He was just sharing something he loved. This became our routine. Every Wednesday night, Thomas would request me. We'd drive around the city while he took calls and I navigated traffic, but in between we talked. He told me about growing up with money but without parents. They died in a car accident when he was 19, and he inherited an empire he never asked for. I told him about having Andre at 17, how my family said I was throwing my life away, how I proved them wrong by building something from nothing. Even if nothing looked like a taxi medallion in a one-bedroom apartment, I started looking forward to Wednesdays. That scared me, because I knew what this looked like. I knew the story people would tell. Poor black woman, rich white man, you do the math. But here's the thing, nobody tells you about loneliness. It doesn't care about your politics or your pride. And I was lonely. Not desperate, not helpless, just tired of doing everything alone. Thomas made me laugh. He asked about Andre's basketball games and remembered details from conversations we'd had weeks before. He saw me as a person, not a service. After 2 months of Wednesday night rides, he asked me to get coffee. Just coffee, after I dropped him off. I sat in my car for a full 5 minutes after he got out, staring at his number on my phone. Every practical bone in my body said no. This wasn't my world. Men like him didn't date women like me. They had flings, they satisfied curiosity, they wrote checks and moved on. But there was this small voice, the one I usually ignore, that said, what if you're wrong? What if he's different? I texted him yes. That coffee turned into 2 hours at a diner near my neighborhood. Not some fancy cafe, a regular diner with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since morning. He didn't seem to care. We talked about everything. He told me about his failed engagement 3 years before, how she loved his money, but couldn't stand him. I told him about Andre's father, who disappeared the day I told him I was pregnant. We talked about dreams. He wanted to build affordable housing, but his board fought him on it. I wanted to open a restaurant, serve my grandmother's recipes, but could barely save enough for next month's bills. When we left that diner, something had shifted. This wasn't driver and passenger anymore. This was two people who saw each other. We started seeing each other regularly. Real dates. And Thomas, he surprised me constantly. He didn't take me to expensive restaurants where I'd feel out of place. He took me to a food truck festival and we ate tacos standing up. He came to Andre's basketball game and cheered louder than any parent there. He brought groceries once without asking, because I'd mentioned my fridge was empty until payday. Not to show off, just to help. Like it was normal. Like we were normal, but we weren't normal. And the world made sure we knew it. Someone took our picture at Andre's game. Within a week, it was online. Real estate mogul Thomas Wellington's mystery woman. The comments were exactly what you'd expect. Gold digger, social climber. He's having a midlife crisis. She's using him. My friends called me, voices full of concern that sounded a lot like judgment. Girl, be careful. Men like that don't marry women like us. They have fun with us. His business associates were reportedly asking him if this was good for his image. One article actually called me Wellington's charity case. Andre came home from school quiet one day. Finally told me some kids were saying his mom was dating a rich white man for money. My baby was 10 years old, defending me on the playground, and I realized my choices weren't just affecting me anymore. I called Thomas and told him we needed to talk. We met at a park, neutral ground. I told him I was ending it. I watched his face fall and it almost broke my resolve. But I kept going. Our worlds are too different, I said. I won't be your project or your rebellion or whatever this is, and I won't put my son through this. He asked me if I loved him. I couldn't answer. He said, I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are, with me. I told him it wasn't that simple. He said, I know, but walking away because you're scared isn't simple either. I walked away anyway. The next 3 weeks were the longest of my life. I drove my taxi, picked up Andre from school, cooked dinner, helped with homework, went to bed, and did it all again. I was functioning, but I wasn't living. Andre asked about Thomas twice before he stopped asking. My tips went back to normal. My Wednesdays were just Wednesdays again. And I was miserable. I kept telling myself I'd done the right thing. Protected my son. Protected myself. Saved us both from inevitable heartbreak when Thomas realized I didn't fit into his world. But late at night, when Andre was asleep and the apartment was quiet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd given up the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too afraid to believe I deserved it. Then, on a random Tuesday evening, there was a knock on my door. I opened it, and Thomas was standing there in jeans and a regular shirt, holding 2 bags of groceries. I don't want to pressure you, he said, but I thought maybe I could cook dinner for you and Andre. I make a decent spaghetti. I should have sent him away. Instead, I let him in. We cooked together in my tiny kitchen, bumping into each other, laughing when he couldn't find the can opener. Andre was suspicious at first, but Thomas talked to him about basketball and video games, not in that forced adult way, but like he actually cared about the answers. We ate spaghetti that was slightly overcooked, and it was the best meal I'd had in weeks. After Andre went to bed, Thomas and I sat on my worn couch, and he said something I'll never forget. I don't want to save you, Nicole. You don't need saving. I don't want to change you or fix you or make you into something you're not. I just want to be with you, in whatever way you'll let me. If that means we keep this private, fine. If that means we go slow, fine. If that means I have to prove myself every single day, I'll do it. Because you're worth it. I started crying. Not pretty crying, but that ugly, snotty crying where you can't breathe right. He handed me a napkin and waited. When I could finally talk, I told him I was scared. Scared of being hurt, scared of people judging Andre, scared of not being enough for his world. He said, I'm scared too, but I'm more scared of living without you. That was 18 months ago. We're still together, still figuring it out. I still drive my taxi because I love the freedom and the people I meet. Thomas invested in my catering business, but I run it, I make the decisions, and I keep the profits. It's small, just weekend events for now, but it's mine. Andre still calls him Thomas, not Dad, but they have this relationship that's real and growing. Some of Thomas's friends have been kind, some haven't. Some of my friends understood, some didn't. We still get looks when we're out together. We still deal with comments online. Last month, someone called me a race traitor at the grocery store. Thomas wanted to confront them. I told him it wasn't worth it. Here's what I learned. Love doesn't follow a script. It doesn't care about your bank account or your skin color or what makes sense on paper. The world will always have opinions about your life, especially when you're a black woman who dares to make choices they don't understand. They'll call you names, question your motives, and try to make you feel small. But you know what's more powerful than their judgment? Your truth, your life, your choices. Thomas and I work because we see each other clearly, not through the lens of what we're supposed to be, but who we actually are. He's not my savior, and I'm not his good deed. We're two imperfect people who found something real in the middle of all the noise. Do we have hard conversations about race and privilege? Yes. All the time. Does he mess up? Yes. Do I? Also yes. Are we figuring it out together? That's all we can do. I'm not going to stand here and tell you love conquers all because that's a fairy tale. Love is work. It's choosing each other when it would be easier to walk away. It's having uncomfortable conversations and checking your assumptions and showing up even when you're scared. It's messy and complicated, and it doesn't fix systemic inequality or erase the realities of living in a world that judges interracial relationships, especially when there's a wealth gap involved. But it's also beautiful and worth fighting for. My grandmother used to say, "Baby, your life doesn't have to make sense to anybody but you." She was right. I'm a taxi driver dating a billionaire. I'm a single black mother in a relationship with a white man who owns half this city. I'm all the things that don't fit neatly into categories or expectations, and I'm happy. Not perfect, not problem-free, but genuinely deeply happy. That's worth more than anyone else's approval. So that's my story, the taxi driver and the billionaire. Not a fairy tale. Better than that. Real, messy, worth it. If this story touched you, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me, have you ever loved someone the world said wasn't right for you? Share this video with someone who needs to hear that love doesn't follow rules. And subscribe because I've got more real stories coming your way. Remember, your life doesn't have to make sense to anyone but you. Now get out there and live it.